Maximizing the IRA and 401k relationship. Hey everyone, Adam Bergman here, tax attorney and founder of IRA Financial. And today's Adam talks how and what you can do to maximize the interplay between having an IRA and a 401k in the same year. And the catalyst for today's podcast is, it's a funny story. I was actually, stuck in an airport. It's like a crazy travel day a week or so ago. Horrible weather and just 3 flights in a row canceled, and 6-hour delay, and just found this 2 nice girls, just started talking, young, smart. We just started chatting. We were just commiserating how bad our days was, and mine wasn't actually that bad. One young lady, she was stuck in the city for 2 days. The airline wouldn't even pay for their hotel. It was a total mess. And we started talking. They asked what I did, and they started Googling, like, oh my God, you actually wrote books. It's like, well, it's not that impressive. They're great if you can't sleep, but otherwise, I don't know if you want to read it when you're on the beach this summer, but we had a good laugh. But anyways, one of the girls was like, I started working with my dad, and I'm 30, and I'm pretty smart. I went to college. I think I'm a pretty educated person. I don't have any retirement savings. I don't understand this stuff. Like, how do I even open an IRA? What do I do? Where does the money go? Can I have an IRA and a 401k? How do I set up either? And I said, you know what? If you don't know this stuff, and I get this comment a lot, like, I'm not doing my job and I need to do a better job explaining really the process for the basic rules of having an IRA and a 401k, right? When you can have one or the other, or when none of them kind of work out for you. In this girl's case, she could have had both, right? So she's like, hey, I do pretty well. She didn't tell me how much she made, but she's like, I'm doing good. I'm young, but I make some money. I said, hey, you work for your dad? Does your dad have a 401k? She's like, no, we don't have a 401k. It's me, my brother, my dad. We have a business. I'm like, you guys are all owners? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, number one, you could have a solo 401k. But even if you weren't all owners, you could have a 401k. She's like, well, what does that do for me? I'm like, well, that would let you put in at least $23,000 because you're under 50. Your dad's over 50, so he'd be able to do $30,500. That's dollar for dollar. That's tax deductible or Roth. So right away, in her head, she's like, oh, okay, that's a lot of money. That's cool. And she's like, then what about the IRA? Like, can I still do the IRA? Like, well, technically, we'd have to know your income. But yeah, in a lot of cases, you can do both an IRA or a 401k. And then I just explained to her the Roth IRA and said, maybe even instead of an IRA, do a Roth, or maybe do a little of each. But she's like, I don't understand this stuff. Like, it seems so complicated. I'm like, it's not. I'm going to do a podcast for you. I'm going to send you a link. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what someone in your position is, who's, whether you're 25, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, who's not sure if they have a 401k, doesn't have any savings, and wants to know, can they set up an IRA? Can they set up a 401k? How does it work? So let me start in the 401k world, because depending on if you have access to a plan at work, that could determine how much you could put into a traditional IRA, or maybe do a Roth IRA. So let's start with the 401k. So any business can set up a 401k, whether you're a sole proprietor, single member LLC, C Corp, S Corp, partnership, even a charity. Okay. If it's your own business and it's just you, then obviously the 401k would just be for you. If you have employees, you're going to have what's called an ERISA 401k. Most ERISA 401ks are safe harbor plans, which means you generally will match up to 3% if your employees put in at least 3% of their salary. Okay. And the beauty of the 401k is it lets you put in away a lot more than an IRA. In 2024, you can put away $7,000 in an IRA if you're under 50, $8,000 if you're over 50 in an IRA. The 401k, from a deferral standpoint, you can do $23,000 if you're under 50, $30,500. Plus you get the match of, let's say, 3% on your salary. Let's say you make $100K, that's an extra $3K. And that's in a regular 401k with employees. If you have what's called a solo 401k, then you can go all the way up to $69,000 or $76,500 if you're over 50, right? So it's actually to your advantage to be self-employed. Now, if you work at Apple, you can still set up your own solo K if you have a side gig, but you need to have a side gig, right? If you're retired or you're in school and you don't have any side income and all you do is a W-2 job at a company you don't own, then you're going to be subject to their 401k. So let's assume your company has a 401k. Okay, you work for company ABC and they have a 401k. You should absolutely try to do everything you can to put as much money as you can in the 401k plan. Again, I'm telling you as a tax lawyer. I'm not saying do alternatives. I'm not saying self-directed. No, I'm saying put as much money in your 401k. You're not going to be able to do alternatives in a regular 401k, and just put it away, whether it's aggressive ETFs or moderate or conservative. That's your call. Just save. Why is it important to save in a 401k? For a number of reasons. Number one, you get a tax deduction if it's pre-tax. So let's say you put 20k away and you make 100k, you only pay tax on 80. You can do Roth. And you don't get a tax deduction for Roth, but so long as you're 59 and a half and the Roth's been open at least 5 years, it's all tax-free. Okay, so that's the second advantage. Another advantage is the catch-up. It's free money you're getting. So let's say you put away, say you make $80,000 and you put away 10k, you'll be able to get 3% of 80, another $2,400, and potentially even higher. Like IRA Financial, for example, we do 4% of your salary. Non-elective, meaning everyone gets it, even if you don't put in 4%. So companies want to help their employees. We want to do what's right. We want to offer retirement benefits. 401k plans, great, most popular type of retirement plan for employees. It's also great for the business, helps retain employees. Company loses some cash flow, but gets a tax deduction for the contributions. And you basically can't have a real business without a 401k now. If you want to attract talent and you're not offering a 401k, you're not going to get talent. I promise you, because people want a good retirement savings plan and they should. And Congress and the IRS are all in favor of that, and they're encouraging businesses to set up 401ks. They're either offering credit. There's up to $5,000 credit for setting up a 401k. If you do a solo 401k, you can get up to a $1,500 credit over 3 years for an auto enrollment feature. So they're really doing their part to help. So that is number one. If you have access to a 401k, do as much as you can in the 401k. All your savings should be in the 401k. Okay. So that's what I told this young lady. I'm like, hey, go to your dad and go set up a 401k. Okay. Whether you use, IRA Financial or another company we work with pension investors, or you use some other company, I don't care. Just set one up. Your dad's in the mid-50s, put away over 30k a year. Add that up. Within 10 years, he's going to have over $1 million in his retirement plan. Okay. So, and for you as a young lady, you're going to take advantage of compounded returns, time value of money, and the rule 72, because your money is going to double every 8 years, assuming a 9% rate of return. So it's a no-brainer. So then let's move on to the IRA world. Okay. So let's take the first case. You have access to a 401k at work, right? You work at IRA Financial, you have access to 401k at work. Can you make pre-tax traditional IRA contributions? So here it's based off your income level. If you did not have access to a 401k at work, then even if you make $100 million a year in W-2, you can still put away $7,000 in an IRA, or $8,000 if you're over 50, because you have no access to a 401k. If you have access to a 401k, even if you don't contribute to that 401k, there's limitations on your ability to make pre-tax IRA contributions. So here they are. If you're single and you make more than 87k, you can't do a traditional IRA tax deductible contribution. So if you can't get a tax deduction, we're going to see you would just turn to a Roth. You would never just do an after-tax IRA. Other than doing a conversion, it makes no sense because you're not getting the tax deduction. And once you pull the money out, their earnings are taxable. So you're in no man's land. So let's say you're married, filed jointly, and the spouse that's making the contribution, let's say it's me, I want to make the IRA contribution, and I'm covered by a 401k at work. If I make more than 143k, I can't do a pre-tax IRA contribution. Okay, why? The IRS is just trying to limit deductions. Deductions are not a friend of the government. Why? Reduces taxable income, means less tax revenue for the government to spend. Hopefully they spend it wisely, but not always the case. If you are married, filed jointly, and it's your spouse, so the spouse putting in the IRA is not the one covered by a 401k, then the phase out's higher. It's 240k, right? So let's say my wife's covered by a 401k at work, but I want to make an IRA contribution for me since it's an individual retirement account, right? My spouse and I would each have their own IRAs. If she's covered by a work plan, but I'm not, and I want to make the contribution, it's 240. That's the cutoff, 240K. If my wife was making the contribution and she's covered, the cutoff is 143. Okay, but let's say I'm below that. I make 80K and I'm married, filed jointly, then I can max out my 401k up to 23K, 30,500 from over 50. And I could also do a pre-tax IRA or 7, 8K. If I made more than the 240 or 143, I wouldn't be able to do the pre-tax IRA. And that would then take me to the Roth IRA world. The Roth IRA world, that's my thing. I wrote a book, In God We Trust and Roth We Prosper. Once you're 59 and a half, the Roth's been open 5 years. It's the ultimate tax shelter. You can take all distributions out tax-free, right? No capital gains, no ordinary income, tax-free, tax-free, tax-free. So for me, the deduction is less important. I want to shelter all my income from tax. But that's just me. You may want deductions currently. That's something that's more important. That's cool. They both work. That's why there's two options. You can go with the pre-tax option or the Roth. Now, the way the Roth income limitations work, and I'm just going to state the rules, although there's a workaround. If you're single, you make more than 161K, you cannot do a Roth. If you're married, filed jointly, make more than 240, can't do a Roth. And here's the caveat. Here's the catch. But don't you love lawyers? But there's something called a backdoor Roth IRA that since 2010, you can make an after-tax IRA contribution, just don't take the deduction, and then immediately convert to Roth. And then if you don't have any other pre-tax IRAs hanging out there, everything could be converted tax-free. So next scenario, right? You have access to a 401k at work. You make more than the 161 or the 143 or the 240. You can't do the pre-tax IRA. Then you go to the Roth. Let's say you make more than 240 or 161, you do the backdoor Roth IRA. If you make less than the 240 married, filed jointly, or if you're single, make less than 161, then you can just go ahead and do the Roth. Okay, so then in that case, you could do a 401k and a Roth. The Roth, there's no limitations in terms of do you have access to a 401k at work because there's no deduction for the Roth. So the IRS isn't worried about deductions. So there's less of a restriction in terms of do you have access to a 401k at work. For a pre-tax IRA, to get that 7 or 8K IRA pre-tax deduction, the determination of whether you can do an IRA pre-tax and also have a 401k is do you have access to a 401k at work? And then if so, if you're single, do you make more than 87K? If you're married, filed jointly, and it's you're making the contribution, 143, or if your spouse is making the contribution, if you have access to a 401k, it's 240K. If you don't want to make pre-tax IRAs, you just go Roth, then even if you have access to a 401k at work, it doesn't matter. It's all based off your income limitation of 161. If you're single, or 240 if you're married. But again, there's always a workaround because you can always do the backdoor Roth. Even if you make $1 million or $100 million, you can always do a backdoor Roth. So that's the interplay. And that's what I promised I was going to do on today's podcast. So in this girl's case, she didn't have access to a 401k. So she had a lot of options. She, of course, could do an IRA pre-tax, full 7K, because she had no access to a 401k. If her dad set up a 401k, then let's play it out. So let's say she made 100K. She's single. So she could put up to 23K in the 401k. But because she's single and she makes more than 83K, she couldn't do a pre-tax IRA. So she then would have to do the Roth. So she could put another 7K in the Roth, right? She's under 161K. She's single. She can do a full 7 in the Roth. So this way she can do 23 in the 401k, 7 in the Roth. Now, again, that's just the max. You can do $1, you can do $50, you can do $3,000, $4,000. It's up to you. But based off the power of deferral, compounding returns, the longer you save, the more money you put away, the more money you're going to have at the end. The younger you are, the better. So in this girl's case, said, you're perfect. You're 30 years old. I gave her some examples. I said, you're 30 years old. You put $6,000 away here, just up to 70 years old, 8% rate of return. Okay. Let's say you just put away $6,000 a year from 30 to 70, 8% rate of return. She'd have $1.5 million in an IRA. She's like, oh, I can easily do 6K a year. I said, okay, great. And now imagine you do 6K a year in an IRA and you did, let's say, another 10K in a 401k. you'd probably have combined $3 or $4 million. And that's when the light bulbs start going off. Like, oh my God, how did no one tell me this? I never understood this IRA or 401k. It's like, listen, go to any brokerage firm. You may not need IRA Financial. She's like, I don't have any money. I'd love to do alts. My family's actually in real estate, but I have no money. So I can't do real estate with zero money in my IRA. So let me build it up. I said, just pick a brokerage firm. I don't care. And just buy like S&P 500 Spider and just leave it there for 10 years. And let your money work for you. Just put in money every year, do as much as you can in 401k, as much as you can in the IRA. Here's my phone number. Call me in 10 years, and then I'll tell you what to do. But just save. And I was like, I'm going to do this podcast, and I'm going to send it to you, and it's going to be all you need to do to succeed. And I said, this fact that we were stuck, this airport for 6 hours, hopefully I've impacted you, and positively at least, besides having a couple beers together and basically showing you that you can become an IRA millionaire very simply. So that's the big confusion, is people get confused with IRAs. I have a 401k. I also can do an IRA. Like, no one explains that, yes, even if you have a 401k, as I mentioned, so long as you make less than those income limitations, you can do a pre-tax IRA, but you can always do the Roth IRA. So even if you make $500k a year, and you have access to a 401k at work, you can always do the Roth, okay, through the back door. But if you're young, you're probably, and you're single, if you make less than 87k, you can do the pre-tax IRA, and you have full access to a 401k. If you don't have access to a 401k at work, then even if you make $1 million, you can do the full 7 or 8k in a pre-tax IRA, depending on your age. So that's how they interplay, the 401k and IRAs. The Roth have less of an interplay with the 401k. It's more about your personal income or W-2, whereas the pre-tax IRA has a closer connection whether you have access or your spouse has access to a 401k at work. But in the perfect scenario, you're able to max out both the 401k and either the IRA or the Roth, and keep doing that for as many years as you can, and you will be an IRA millionaire, guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed. I don't know what you're investing in, but again, just assuming like between a 7 and 10% rate of return over the course of the next 30 years, which if you just stuck your money in the S&P 500, you'd get there. That's without doing alternatives or real estate or other more sexy bespoke investments. You're going to get there, and you're going to have $1 million plus in your IRA. It's pretty much guaranteed. I've seen it. Tens of thousands of my clients. I've seen it myself. I've been saving for retirement since 25, 48, maybe 49. So you can understand how much I have. Seen it with my wife, and I've seen it obviously with my parents and family. So it works. It's guaranteed. That's why Democrats and Republicans, it's the one area they don't fight on, because it works. The system's rigged in our favor. It's just about educating people to know how to work it, and just understanding the terms and how they work and how easy they are to kind of start. And the hardest part is just starting. Once you start, just kind of snowballs, and the money keeps growing and growing, and super easy. So thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, a really important video. And thank you. You know who you are. I'm not going to mention your name. I promise I wouldn't, but hopefully this helped you. And hopefully you had a nice journey and you got to where you needed to go. So thanks again. Have a great day, and I'll see everyone again next week. Thanks.